first episode of LOSDIGITALES.live. It's a big privilege for me to be in the presence of such great people. Here as a co-host with me, it's my brother Eduardo El Condor Ibacache. It's here, right? A Chilean from, a Chilean that lives in Norway. It's a Viking over there. Looks like Vikings are also with some blood from Latin America. And so buenos días a todos. Buenos días. Bienvenidos al primer episodio de los digitales en vivo. Y pues es un gran privilegio, ¿no? Estar aquí en este primer show hablando de temas que pues son bastante importantes para el mundo del emprendimiento, el entrepreneurship. Creo que el tema que vamos a tocar hoy con los expertos es un tema muy importante es un área muy importante del emprendedurismo, ¿no? Que viene siendo el venture capital. Y tenemos aquí, le damos la bienvenida a Adrian Mendoza y a Jesse Martinez, pero quiero que mi amigo, el Cóndor legendario, les dé la bienvenida como se merecen.
Muchas gracias. Gran titán José Ocho, así lo titulamos nosotros dentro de los digitales, ¿no? Mi hermano gran titán. Bienvenidos, and we're going to talk Spanglish today, so hang along. And I would like to welcome Jesse and Adrian, that we're going to talk about venture capital. What is it? How does it work? Like, how can we enter there? And what do we need to know? What should we know if we enter? And what can we gain? Like moving from where we are, like as entrepreneurs entering venture capital. And I will start by asking Jesse and Adrian, tell us your story. We start with Jesse first, and then you hand over to Adrian. Like, where did it start for you? Like, tell us your journey. Like, where did it start? Like, becoming entrepreneur in the first case. Like, what made you get that like goal in life? Like, what is like your earliest memory that you have of entrepreneurship, for example?
Well, muchas gracias a Eduardo y a José. Un pleasure, un honor de estar aquí con ustedes en Los Digitales. So thank you very much for having me here. It's a great opportunity, and thank you for having me on the show. So my name is Jesse Martinez, originally from Houston, Texas. Mis papás son de México, de Tampico y afuera de Acapulco. Born and raised in Houston, Texas A&M, mechanical engineering degree. And then over the years, I made it to San Francisco in 1997. And so my journey really starts there with respect to entrepreneurship and tech and startups and investing. And so I joined a startup in 97 as employee 27. We were funded by Sequoia Capital. We're one of two pioneers in the web hosting services space. So we were hosting Yahoo, Netscape, and some other marquee internet brands. We went from a startup to part of a public company in less than a year via 2 acquisitions. And so that's where I learned about stock options. And so the ongoing joke for a while there was, they don't teach us about stock options in Texas. And so from that, I caught the startup bug, and I did my first startup with my brother, starting in 98 through 2000. Unfortunately, we didn't sell it in time due to the dot-com bust. But fast forward, I wrapped up startup number 4 early this year, which was Career Force. And so Career Force was a startup that's focused on workforce development into the Salesforce ecosystem. I was incubated at the Salesforce incubator. I was the first entrepreneur in residence. And there we ran cohorts helping people from diverse communities enter the Salesforce ecosystem. In that journey, I also started Latino Startup Alliance, which is now Latinx Startup Alliance, focused on empowering Latino tech founders. When I was looking to do my second startup in early 2010, I was looking for resources as a Latino tech and founder, because that was the early days of Black founders, Jewish founders, and other community-based organizations. After some Google searches, I couldn't find anything. So I was like, well, how could that be? We're in the global hub, mecca of the world for tech. but there's no support for Latinos. And so early 2011, we started Latino Startup Alliance. Fast forward, well over 1,000 members globally. And so have had the honor and privilege to work with many Latinx founders and support them in their journeys. You know, not only providing tools and resources, but also as an advisor. And as we know, you know, it's very important to have a network of, you know, not only investors, but also resources that can help and support and benefit the founder. And so with that journey, you know, I've been able to go to the White House 4 times under tech inclusion, also the Clinton and Global Initiative twice. Last year, I was at the UN a couple of times. And then the beginning of this year, I was honored and blessed to attend Davos as part of the first U.S. Hispanic delegation led by We're All Human under the leadership of Claudia Romo Edelman. So with all that said, you know, it's been a long journey and also just organically, which led me to 2020. So in addition to my day job, you know, being able to lead Latinx Startup Alliance, being able to lead as a venture partner with Republic, which is a platform for crowd investing, and then also being able to work with a good friend, Marcos Gonzalez with Vamos Ventures as a new $25 million fund as we look to make investments in 2021. So thank you, Eduardo and Jose.
Awesome.
That's a really amazing story. We need more Jesses to give, like, how can you say, inspiration, like, to our communities, right?
Thank you.
Really love that story. Thank you, Jesse. Adrian.
Gracias al gran titán José, el Eduardo de Norway, el Viking de conocido latino. Gracias por conectar a los dos y invitarme aquí. Déjame verlo en inglés. So my journey is, I'm also from Mexican parents. My dad is actually from Tampico as well. My mom is Ciudad de Mexico. They met in Tijuana. They came to LA in the 1970s, actually. So I grew up in Southern California. I had gone to USC, and in 98, I applied for grad school at Harvard, sight unseen, never went out to the East Coast, and I went. And it happens to be when I was done with my grad school at Harvard, I was caught up in the Boston startup boom and the startup tech bubble. Got recruited to go to IBM's Innovation Lab for e-commerce in 2000, stayed there, and then stayed within the Boston tech ecosystem. Early in 2008, 2009, raised venture capital for my first startup. Pivoted that company, raised more venture capital. Mid 2015, we went into acquisition mode. And like most startup founders, the board said, we're going to sell this thing, go find something to do. And I did. I actually joined, exactly, that's the good story, as Jesse can attribute. I actually got recruited then to John Hancock's Innovation Lab to be the entrepreneur in residence. And my wife and I had both, been working at the startup. She had been our unofficial COO. And at the end of the 2015, we were being attracted to go run other startups. And we said, let's not do that. Let's take our winnings, and why don't, instead of trying to build the next startup, we start investing in startups. We started Mendoza Ventures in 2016 with a pilot fund of about 90% of our own money. We did 3 investments, and we sold our second investment in 5 months. And I'm proud to say that is a Latino-led startup called Good Dog Labs out of Austin, Texas. And so we're super proud that for us, our highest performing company is Latino-led. We knew we were onto something. We focused on AI, fintech, and cybersecurity because I bootstrapped 2 of my companies doing work for the State Streets of the world and a lot of the FIs and the banks, and building products and and applications for them. In 2018, we went out to raise our second venture fund, which is an early stage fund at Mendoza Ventures. We grew our team. In 2 years, we've done 6 investments, raised close to $15 million. And the goal is to empower early stage fintech and AI entrepreneurs with a really hands-on approach to venture capital. And one of the big believers that I believe, having been a Latino entrepreneur, is that for me, venture gave me the opportunity to become an investor, to grow myself professionally and personally, that I am a huge believer that we can build wealth for Black and brown investors using venture capital as both, not just as the the founder, but also as a funder as well, as an investor. That we need access to tools like this that can help our community to be able to grow their net worth, grow their networks, and start building the path to success here in the US and beyond.
Before I leave over
Awesome.
to El Gran Titan, I have just a quick question. Did you ever feel some type of glass roof in VC as a minority group?
I'll start. I think one of the things that we had always seen is very few Latinos on the East Coast were self-identified. I think we're really lucky on the West Coast to have a much larger group of Latinos that are pulling together in different organizations. On the East Coast and beyond, there really wasn't that. So very much one of the things that I make it a mission now is to pull these founders and funders that are Latino to start talking to each other and build the relationships now that have been happening in the last 10 years in Silicon Valley, but make them happen in New York, in Boston, in Chicago, LA as well. Because that's one of the things is in order to break the glass ceiling, there has to be more of us for people like Jesse and myself to be mentored from that have made it farther across, and as well as founders underneath us that we help pull up. I always like to say that we as a Latino have to have one hand pulling ourselves up and another hand pulling the next person up as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so
That's
true.
a great.
Adrian.
I mean, it doesn't happen very often, to be honest, Adrian. Unfortunately, we Latinos have that big label on the chest that we are very, we tend to be very isolated, or when we see others having success, we tend to attack them or block them, right? We have that big label. And one of the main reasons why we are doing this here, Eduardo and Los Digitales group, it's, to get rid of that label, because we really wanna empower others or put the platform for others to show their success, right? And because we want others to grow bigger and better than us, right? As an entrepreneurs or so whatever activity we are doing, like this podcast, a lot of Latinos are looking on this all over the world, in Asia, Europe, Latin America, United States, Canada, and that's the main message that we want to show and display here. We want to get rid of that label or scarcity and that type of mindset, and show and display an abundance mentality on our Latino community. So I think it's very important and very critical, that topic that you just touched there, and I love it. Adrian and Jesse, I would like to ask you a very simple and plain question first. If you can explain to us, because some people looking here on the channel, they are not very familiar with what's VC, right? I mean, what's the meaning of venture capital? What they do? Are they an investor, or are they going to be my boss, or are they going to buy my company? I mean, what's going on with venture capital, right? And I think, first of all, I think you guys find the right formula, because sometimes, or previously, as far as I understand, venture capitals used to be people just with the capital and the money and trying to select, any startup that they want to invest, but they not necessarily have the experience to being a big company builders, right? On this case, it looks like you have the perfect blend, which is, first of all, you build your own companies from the ground, and now then with all that experience, you are with all that experience and expertise that you guys have, you are showing that and sharing that with the founders of other companies or startups, plus you are helping them with the leverage of capital, right? So if you can explain to us what are the basics, the mechanics about venture capital. What is venture capital?
Yeah, well, I'll just start a little bit with the history, right? So we go back to the 70s when we think about Silicon Valley and how it was founded and how it came to be, and then thinking about those early VCs, right, that invested in the Ciscos, but more importantly with the companies that were manufacturing the silicon chips. And so taking, that history and then going upstream over the years, now we're at a point where, we have VCs or a solo GP, right, that's managing a multi-million-dollar fund, given their experience and also their relationships that they have with their LPs. And so the LPs being the limited partners that invest into a fund that's managed by a venture capitalist, right? And then VC is pretty broad because now, one of the things that, when we think about a VC, going back to the earlier days, it was just a handful of people. And now you take someone like an Andreessen where they have a team of 80 plus. So not only are they investing, but then they're also providing, marketing, talents. And so there's all these other areas of service. So we think about how a talent agency runs in Hollywood, the same principles are being applied to some of the large venture capital firms, right, that are $1 billion plus. And so I'll let Adrian add to that as well.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think to even take a step farther of like, what is venture capital? Is venture capital, and I don't want to get too technical, is an asset class. Mm-hmm. It's like, where we have mutual funds and ETFs, the actual venture capital vehicle itself is an SEC registered product. It's the SEC oversight. And so part of one of the things that it really is a pooled investment vehicle for accredited investors to put their money in a vehicle that then someone manages and deploys. And that's what the manager does. They choose winners, they choose losers, they choose investments, and the limited partners who are the investors are traditionally, these accredited investors. And I think that's something that we should touch on next of what is an accredited investor? What does that mean? But to go back to the topic, traditionally venture has always been very passive. It is 2 years of someone raising money, 3 years of someone deploying money, and then waiting, the next 10 to 15 years for these exits to happen. And for me, that's one of the things that I saw that needed to get fixed in venture, is to have someone like Jesse and myself who have actually had the experience before of building companies and see what the companies need. Because there are the Andreessens and Sequoias and these large institutional venture funds, but there's also smaller funds that are now emerging out of the marketplace, that are now emerging in the landscape, that are bringing different offerings. Well, this one is for AI, and that one is for only investing in healthcare, and that one only invests in dogs or cats. And so they all have a theme around them. And so the idea is that there are people that believe that by investing in a certain theme or investing in a certain method, that they'll have return. And so what we have always looked at, especially myself of my own experience, the most amazing investors, both as an angel investor, as an individual, and then the ones that were venture, were people that were very active and that came from an operating and had built companies before. And for us, that's what we look to replicate. How do we create more value add? Because getting investors is easy. Being a founder and finding capital, it's whether or not that capital can provide something back to you as the founder.
Yeah, and that's where we get into the smart money, dumb money, and where's that money coming from, and what's that value that Adrian talks about? Is what else can those investors do for you as you build that relationship based on that investment capital?
Right. Hey, guys, I have another question here. I've been fortunate enough to be having a conversation with Mark Cuban like 4 months ago during the peak of pandemic. And one of the things that he told to our group is that it was a group of entrepreneurs. He was giving us advice and how to handle the pandemic, what will be the challenges that we are going to face, some strategies. I mean, it was very, very nice. But one of the points that he told to everybody there on the room, he told us that, guys, don't look for money right now. Don't look for investments. I mean, investments on 2020 or investors or venture capitals, I mean, will be extremely difficult to find the right person, and will be extremely difficult to qualify uh, for investment on this pandemic thing. But what I'm hearing from you guys, it's like a little bit different perspective about that. You guys are open and happy to really invest on some startups that you see the potential, or you see that you can transform and or take that startup to the next level. So what are your thoughts about this about my question on here?
I'll let Jesse take this one, and then I can take it afterwards.
Sure. Well, I think, when we think about like Mark Cuban, he sometimes talks about entrepreneurship at a high level. And so we have to think about the different types of entrepreneurship. And so I would say, in our cases, Adrian and myself, we live in a world of tech. And so what are those startups, right, that are leading through tech, right? A tech-enabled startup or a tech-first startup, and what market are they in? What vertical? What industry? And so, what's the work that they're doing? And then how does their business model be impacted by COVID or not, right? So we see some startups that are flourishing, right, because of COVID, and we see others that have had to shut down given their business model. And so I think, in terms from tech, it's going to vary, right, from industry to industry. And so, hopefully in 2021, we'll see some of the other, startups come back if they're still around. That's the unfortunate part about COVID, is that, if you were doing something around travel, you were highly impacted due to COVID.
Well, one of the things that I want to say about that is I am a big believer to the founder that venture capital shouldn't always be the end all and be all. That's something that can help to grow you and accelerate you, but you still have to make sure that there's a right business there, that there's revenue being there, that there's customers there. And all COVID has done is accelerated something that would already happen. My first startup, we had customers, we had a product, and we found interesting ways of doing it before we even raised venture capital. One of the things I like about Mark Cuban is he always talks about the concept of trading up. You do one thing that gets you to the next thing, that gets you to the next thing. And I'm a believer of doing that as a founder. I'm also a believer of doing that as an investor, to get yourself to one level, to the next level, to the next level. And my believer that venture is a tool, but it's not a solution. That anything you do, from being the founder and the funder, should also teach you about what you're going to do next, and so on and so on and so on. The Mark Cuban trade up. I mean, that's, I think, the important thing to take out of, these lessons.
Yeah, I think that's great, Adrian. And I think, the biggest thing is not every business or every startup is VC backable. And so sometimes, sometimes it is an educational process and working with the founders so that they understand, what does it mean to be VC backable, and is it a VC backable business? And so, that's educational process that we take sometimes.
Guys, and guys, what before you invest, or what when you are looking to invest on a startup, what have more power for you? I mean, the entrepreneur or the business model? What have the biggest weight on the equation here? I mean, the guide, the el jinete o el caballo? Yes.
You know, I'm a believer that it has to be both, because you have an amazing product, but you don't have a founder who knows how to raise money, or you have a founder who knows how to raise money and has no terrible product, and they're not helpful on each of them. And I think that's the important piece of. I've always been a believer that when you bring on investors, you have to they're not just investors, they're partners. They are in the boat with you. And we've had situations when in doing due diligence, we find out that the entrepreneur doesn't understand what it means to have a venture investor, that there's going to be oversight, that someone else now just bought X amount of the business and can outvote them, and it's now part of that conversation. And that's one of the things that what venture does is it looks to create, with an investors who've now bought something, have bought a piece of the company, you have to have the right checks and balances, because it's no longer the founder that can do whatever they want or the business owner. There's now someone involved. And if it's not there, and the synergy is not there with both the rider and the horse, it never happens. That's where people get thrown off the horse. That's where that's literally how people get hurt.
And Adrian, if I am a startup guy, how do I know if venture capital is for me? It's an option for me, or not.
The important piece is that as much as
because I don't know what's happening here. It's the magic of TV, right?
Jose, the important
Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, I could hear you. Jose, the important part that
No,
I can still hear you. So, Jose, the important part with that solution is as much as you're pitching. Did we lose Jose?
Jose, your image is, you have like something with your connection, so your mic is working perfectly. It's just your image that gets blurry, so we hear you perfectly.
Okay, it was just like suddenly everybody disappeared except me. But anyways, so going back to my question, it's how do I evaluate if I am a startup or a business owner? How do I know if venture capital is the right thing to do for me? Because sometimes, as an entrepreneur, sometimes we tend to think that the solution is the money. Okay. Yeah. What's your problem? Money. I need money. But that's not really, in most of the cases, that's not the solution. Money is not a problem, right? It's something more complex in terms of your venture. So how do I evaluate, or if someone, a startup guy is listening to you guys, what do you recommend to them to evaluate if venture capital is the right step for them?
My big thing, Jose, is that in doing that, I've always a believer that when the entrepreneur goes to venture, that it's a two-way relationship. It shouldn't be you pitching them. They also have to pitch you. And I tell founders, and even some of them get surprised, to say, reach out to their portfolio companies. What was your experience with them? Was it helpful to them? And founders ask me, can I do that? And I'm like, of course you did. Every entrepreneur is helpful to share, is there to share their story with you. And the ones that won't, you don't really want to talk to them anyways. And even when I was fundraising for venture myself or my own company, we still did back channel conversations. I remember other people saying, why are you talking to that investor? And I said, well, he's met us 3 times. And he's like, well, he doesn't have any money. Don't have a conversation with him. And it's the important part is the active conversations. And even in conversations like here at Los Digitales, to start having the conversation of what it means to be a founder, what it means to raise money. All of that is really important so that everyone walks in with this eyes wide open of what they're going to get themselves into.
Yeah, that was so important. And Jose, just from a founder perspective, thinking about, do I have the right product market fit? Right? Do I have the traction that is necessary, right? That says, hey, if I add some more capital to this, right, then it's going to help me grow X percent, month over month. And so those are some of the conversations, that we have with the founders, is that, what does that growth trajectory look like? And I know sometimes we all want to see that hockey stick, but also being just realistic, right? What does that growth look like over the year? And then you'll hear, some investors talk about, well, can you hit 100 million in 5 years? That's kind of been, that rule of thumb. And so, thinking about venture, the different types of venture, right? So you also have strategic investors that could come in and play a role in your company. And so, there's a lot of options, but I think the biggest, advice that I give founders is, look at like others that are in the same industry as you, what's been their trajectory, right? What's been the pluses and the minuses, and then also engage in the ecosystem so that if you are working in fintech, well, what does that fintech ecosystem look like, right? Who are all the players? Where are the companies, right? What does their funding cycles look like, so that you can be more aware and also educated as you have your conversations with both investors and also partners.
Yeah. Eduardo, I would like to invite you to, because I talk too much, man. So please join.
Do you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, like it's about relations, right? Like my experience from VCs, I went to pitch 2 VCs and they annoyed me the crap out of me. So the second meeting, I like, no way, I will learn to sell, and that's what I did. We learned to sell. We grew to 35 employees as the most, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And like, I didn't want to talk to VCs because it's like, I met one VC actually that I liked, they were like entrepreneurs. The 2 that I met before, they were like, for me, like, I don't know, like I take pride in my skills, right? I worked really hard to get the skills that I have, and for me, like somebody that never built something, like is going to tell me something like they say I'm wrong about something that I know that I'm right about, that really annoys me. Like you need to have like whoever you talk to, if you're like expert in tax and you talk to like Eduardo about tax, like I'm a totally rookie, like, right, and then I'm like trying to preach to them about tax, they get annoyed. You understand? That's how it is, when you're an expert in something, you're expert in that. That's the thing, and when I met these 2 VCs was like it was not only about that I knew more than them than my topic, because that is my job to know more, as they invest in me, right? So that was not the main issue. The main issue was like their attitude against me, they didn't treat me in a good way. And I don't like that, because when I build a company, I build a family. Even if I build an event, I build a family. That's how I build, and that's how I succeed. I do things with passion, like all the way. Like even if it's like Los Digitales, we're doing this with heart, why do we give to the community? It's very simple, like we have shined, like Oshoa, everybody, we have like done our things, and now it's time to lift up others. We really believe that, and we do that, And like my last, how can I say, interaction with VC was actually last year. I have been advising for some VCs, like when they were doing investment and stuff. So they were offering me to take over an innovation, like, can you run this innovation? We're giving you this money and all these people, you run it, and you get all these shares. And I was getting a quite big cake, right? Piece of the cake for doing that. But I turned it down actually, because one of the owners of the VC company, we didn't connect, and we connected, but in a very bad way. And this is what I tell startups when I coach them, is that what I coach is growth culture. Like, how do you start anything from zero with heart and brain? I'm not teaching about VC because I don't have that experience, but I can teach you how to grow anything. Like, how can you start operation with sales? How can you build like a product with almost no money, because that's what I have been doing all my life. I don't need VC to take the first steps, right? But what I tell them is that if you want to go now from 10 to like 100, it's a good idea to take VC. But if you're going to take VC, you need to feel in the stomach that these people, like, I can celebrate with them, Because if you don't have a feeling that you can celebrate with somebody, it will not work. It's so simple, Like, for me, relationship, partnership, it's like finding your spouse, right?
It's like
because
a marriage.
You can't get rid of them. It's so simple. Like, now you gave them your shares. What can you do, And I did that in the beginning. Like, I gave away shares to people. They're like, oh, I'm this awesome, like, advisor, mentor. And they sold me this story, right? And and I couldn't get rid of them. And even if you give them 1%, you can't get rid of them. That's like normal because you're working hard to make this happen, right? And like most entrepreneurs, they work hard, and I say the same for VC, it's like we're all humans, right? So everybody has a role to play. But if you're going to give away shares in your company, if you're going to work, break your back for somebody, make sure it's somebody you can celebrate with. That's the advice that I have for anybody, my question to you is, like, in the opposite case, who do you invest in? Who do you want as an investment? What type of person? And what do you do when that investment of that entrepreneur doesn't work? When this entrepreneur goes loco?
So, Eduardo, what's really funny is you talk about like the idea of, the investor. What's really funny is that when you become a VC, you have your own investors. You have the limited partners. And one of the things, the best advice I got about it is having come from the world of the founder, where we had investors. Now we as VCs have people that we report to. And the best advice I got, which is for both the limited partner and for both the founder as well, is that this is a long-term relationship. You have to be very, very comfortable that the VCs who are coming into your company are people you like, respect, and you want to work with. Yeah. That the founders that come into it. And then at the same time, when we as a venture fund bring in investors, this is a 10-year fund. This is a 10-year relationship. We're getting married to these people. We have to make sure that we like them as much as we like us. So that it's funny because it's from both spectrums. Even as the founder and the funder, this is still about building relationships. And for me, when we started Mendoza Ventures, to both the founders and the funders, one of the things that was important all around was to build a family. When an investor comes into our fund, I welcome them to part of our family. When a founder gets invested by us, I welcome them into the family, because this is it. This is we're in the train together on both sides.
Adrian, I think this is the right example of what's the difference between a regular VC and a Latino VC, right? You are very welcoming. You really embrace the relationship, right? Like a familia. You understand that, and sometimes we as an entrepreneurs we are afraid about bringing an investor because it's just like the story of Eduardo, like. We see each other as enemies, right? Okay, you are the money man, I am the brain and the visionary, right? But that's a good thing. I mean, a Latino VC will always have that touch of understanding and embracing and trying to help and create that familia. Also, Jesse, I would like to ask you, or both of you, Adrian, what's an accredited investor? What is that? Can you explain that to us?
Right. And so, yeah, so just on your last point around, family, that's so true. And then, what's great about, over the years is that now you have a lot of options for money, right? Whether if it's, VC money, angel money, the number of investors, types of investors is so much more, which is, great for the founders. And so now you have the choice of whether to bring someone on board or not. And then the other thing is that, these investors, not only are they there for the good times, they're also there for the bad times. So, they can take those calls when it's not related to the company itself. Is the founder going through a tough time? Is there a family event that took place? And so I know a lot of investors that, do pick up the phone, right, on the weekends, and then also, after hours, because they want to be there for their founders. And it's just part of building that relationship, which is so key. And going back to that it is a long-term relationship that you're looking at. But back to your original question about, accredited investor, at a high level, it used to be that only 3% of the U.S. population, right, was able to be an accredited investor that was investing. And so that number has started to open up. And so when you think about some of the criteria, being able to have, an single income of 200K or more for the past 2 years, or a net worth of $1 million, not including your real estate. And so, some of those numbers might change, in the coming years based on the regulations that the SEC is looking at. But, I'll let Adrian chime in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of it is the word accredited investor assumes that someone has, and so what I talk about technically, what is it? Who and what is an accredited investor? An accredited investor is someone that has a couple of things that check boxes. Funny enough, there is no real accredited, there is no piece of paper that says, I'm an accredited investor, look. And it really is guidelines and these are specific to the US, there's some specific to Canada, that say that individual who is going to invest is sufficiently sophisticated enough that if they lose their money, they understand eyes wide open that they're going to lose their money. Just like how we as investors know that we could inherently lose our money, to the investor who's either making an angel investment or investing into a fund. And the rules in the US is that this person should have about $1 million of net worth, box check one, or they should be making more than 200K a year, or these are new changes that came this year, is someone who works in the financial world like a certified financial advisor who has a series 6, 5, 7, or 8 that has enough knowledge of investing that they have that eyes wide open. And funny enough, like when I was an entrepreneur, and even when I was an entrepreneur, I had been an accredited investor and didn't even know it. I was making 200K a year working at Fidelity, and no one ever told me. I was talking to another Latino investor who now invests in venture in other startups as an angel investor, and we both agreed that there was no one in our community, there was no one in our professional that was Latino that would say, you're an accredited investor, you can start investing. And part of it is the importance of, as an accredited investor, to start building a risk portfolio, of money that you could set on fire right now that is high risk, high reward, that you're willing to put into Jesse's hands, my hands, Eduardo's hands, Jose's hands, to be able to make an investment. And so the important part of the accredited investor is that they have to be knowledgeable enough that they're going to lose it as well.
I have a question. It's like, I now remember what annoyed me so much about the first VC that I met. They said like, you're not like the others, he said on the meeting, about me, like being like Latino, right? Or like immigrant. So he said that to me, and this is the thing, how I believe like business is, is that they have this expression, right? Like it's only business, it's nothing personal. That's only in the movies. In reality, business is personal all the way. And if you're going to like work all your life really hard to achieve something like you dream for, and you get an investor and you like match right together, you're like, you need to bond, and you need to work together like all the way, right? And that is like, you're expecting the same from people you invest in, right? You expect loyalty, honesty, everything, like give it all, right? A todo corazón. Make this investment growth, like we trust in you, So for me, it's like mutual, you need to have this kind of connection. And I didn't get it with them, but the third that I got it with, they were like you guys, And I still today like think like, what if I had gone with my innovation that I had at that time and written patent and everything? How far could I have come, with this investor, right? Because they were the right match, So I really believe like it's you need to match like whatever, like it's not something trivial, like, oh, let's just take this investor and they give us some money and then we just move on, right? Because you need to report to them, you need to. So tell us a little about like, what do you expect from the entrepreneurs that you invest in? Like, what is their relation to you? Like, how does it work? Like from like you invest and then you do an exit. What happens during this time?
I'll use an example of the two founders I invested in. And it was funny because being that they were both Latino, they had never met another Latino investor. They had never met another Latino entrepreneur. And it was actually that their attorney that reached out to me and said, can you meet them? They're looking for someone that has shared experiences. And it happened to be, a good relationship with them. They were two brothers. They had never met anyone like me that was, Mexican-American itself, that was another investor. And it was a great fit because I knew where they were coming from. I knew where their story was. And so when we sold them, for me, I was part of the acquisition. Like I was helping negotiate the best terms for them. I negotiated things that I negotiated so well that they fired their lawyer after they sold, that the acquirer fired their lawyer and hired our lawyer. And part of it is these two entrepreneurs, I talk to them, on a weekly basis still, because they're like brothers to me. They've been to my house for carnitas and tequila before when they're in Boston. And the importance of it is, for me to help another Latino succeed, to get them to now have their story, where now that once they've succeeded, they're now starting to talk to me about, how do I invest? How do I give back into, and this is one of the magical things about angel investing and venture, is that the money and wealth that's created because of it stays in our communities. It stays within other founders. And this is why I'm a big believer, because I've seen it now with Latinos that have created wealth from being venture capital. Like I tell everyone, if it wasn't for venture capital, I wouldn't be where I am at today, because that's what gave me my opportunity. That's what gave me my shot, for Jesse as well, to scale our company. And then from there, the money that came from there, we brought it back into community. The money that we made went back into, Latino founders. The money that we made from there went back again. That Mark Cuban, we traded it up. We went out and we used it to start our own venture fund. So the relationship between founder and funder is just as important, because now when I'm meeting with the men and women who are investors in us, we also have to have the same relationship as well, that believe in us, that believe that we are doing right by them, and that believe that we're going to take care of not just the money from them, but it's money that's from their own families.
Got it.
Yeah, I was going to add that. Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. When we think about building wealth and also keeping it within the community and also supporting our families. And so I've always joked over the years that just as there was a PayPal mafia, there's an Uber mafia, there's an B mafia soon to be. You know, we need our own Latino mafias, but in a good way, right? So in a positive way. And so how do we create and, you know, champion those, you know, Latinx founders that are building, you know, those next unicorns and being able to create, you know, another generation of future investors, right? Whether if it's angel or venture. And so, you know, I'm pretty excited about, you know, what the future holds. You know, I've been in this space for a long time, since 2010, you know, with the, you know, a Latino lens. And so, you know, you see some great organizations coming together. So certainly, you know, Latinx VC, you have Angeles Investors, which is, you know, bringing together accredited investors to invest in Latinx founders, where they're, you know, hosting these pitches, you know, every quarter. And then you're seeing, you know, just a lot more support for allowing diverse populations to enter into the angel and VC pipeline. And there's a number of great resources, and, you know, I'm happy to share that, you know, with this post, you know, of the video, so that others can find those resources and be a part of this, you know, ecosystem.
Yeah. And Jesse, I was going to say, Jesse, I 100% agree. And two of the resources I think are twofold. One, we have Los Digitales promoting other Latinos. That's the most important thing, is to promote the founders and the funders of color, especially the Latino ones, to build our own mafia, to get us to not only start investing in our own companies, but the wealth that gets generated. Jesse, you're 100% right. It's about helping build that wealth. And then once these Latinos have wealth, to begin to get them to start investing as well. You know, Angeles is doing a great job of mobilizing angel investors. But then at the same time, like, I use the story of myself as the accredited investor. I didn't have access to products like venture capital. I didn't have access to products like private equity. No one was going now to educate me as a Latino that I can create wealth in this fashion. The only thing that I knew was investing in the stock market. And so now we have resources like Jesse and myself that have Latino-led venture funds. You know, you'll hear me say it, that like, if you want to invest in venture, I'm here. Where other funds won't let you in, there's Jesse and Adrian right here, that if you're a Latino and you're accredited, we will let you in. I'm a big believer that we have to not put up the gate to stop people, but when you become accredited, and it might not even be just you gain 200K. Let's say you have a restaurant or a small business and you've accumulated net worth. The traditional thing in our community is, oh, we're going to accumulate net worth. I think we're good. But how do you take that net worth and start investing more for not just you, but the next generation?
So we actually need Vatos Capital, right? That's the right VC. That's our VC, vatoscapital.com. Enter there, you will find us all. I just put that domain. I will put a list of all the Vatos Capitals. We need to unite, or as Fran Carvajal says, es tiempo, right?
Es tiempo.
Yeah, Vatos
Capital. You heard it on Los Digitales. Vatos Capital. That is what we need. And
Chicano Ventures. So I have a couple of good friends that's Puerto Venture, you know, and they're, you know, just starting out. But hey, we're going to raise a 500K fund, invest in seed stage companies that are diverse led, but to focus on Latinx. And so, you know, you're seeing more and more of us, right, enter into the system, but we still have a long way to go, unfortunately.
And I think
we just need to unite and push forward. That's it.
The change makers are here in this room to do it. You know, the Gran Jose Ochoa promoting us, the Gran Eduardo talking to us from Norway, you know, Jesse doing it on the West Coast, I'm doing it on the East Coast. This is how we're going to meet in the middle.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's definitely what we need. And again, that was the vision of Los Digitales, right? To create that platform to elevate the voice of the Latino entrepreneurs and talented Latinos that wanna share something of value to the world, right? And guys, I have another question before I forget this. In terms of companies that you are looking to invest, and just to set up the perspective here, are you guys looking companies just on US, Canada, Europe, or Latin America, or you are open to invest in startups all over the world?
So Mendoza Ventures invests all around the world. Our portfolio is across 3 countries, Canada, the UK, US. In the US, we invest in California, New York, Boston, Austin. For me, when I was in venture, we saw that one of the limits of venture was that it was so local. If you only invested in your local community, you'd only meet a small piece of entrepreneurs. And how do you meet more diverse entrepreneurs, Black and brown and women? You go to places that aren't typical. You go outside of Silicon Valley. You look at other areas where there is a diverse population. You look at areas where, and for us, that's the value proposition to our investor, is the limited partners and the accredited investors who join Mendoza Ventures. We give them access to other markets. We give them access to other opportunities and companies that they may not meet being in the Valley or being in New York or being in abroad. And that's, I think, the importance is us to go out of our own comfort zones and start looking for the best entrepreneurs that are out there.
Yeah, that's so true, is that talent is everywhere. And so, when we think about, Vamos Ventures, it's about, focused on the US, so nationwide, seed and up to Series A, small check up to higher amounts, and really looking for 30 to 40 deals over the next 4 years to invest in diverse founders, but specifically Latinx. And so we know that they're out there, and it's just a matter of identifying them and being able to really provide not only the capital as we talked about, but also the mentorship and the support needed, right, to help excel their efforts as they build their companies.
Yeah, that's
agreed.
Fantastic. Eduardo?
Yeah, could you please tell us about your current offering? I know, Adrian, you're like raising a fund right now, and Jesse, could you tell us what you're up to? If we start with you, Adrian, what are you doing now? Like, what do you have an offering to the community? Like, tell us what
Yes,
you're up
so
to.
we have our early stage fund, and it closes at the end of the year. And we have, our limit is normally 250,000 for investors, but we have a flexible limit for minorities and Latinos and women investors, because I want more of them. I want to not just build wealth for those that are accredited investors. I want to build wealth for those that are accredited investors that are Black and brown, women investors that, like me, had no access to products like this. We are your access to products like this. We can build, yes, it is risky, but how do we get to build that multi-generational family wealth? I'm a huge believer that it happens in venture. So we have till the end of the year. If those that are interested, reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you. I'm happy to educate you. And our model involves not just passively investing, but hands-on investors that want to learn about the startup ecosystem, want to learn about how venture works, and at the same time want to use this to build their own portfolio of co-investments, is investing alongside our fund to start building that opportunity to start creating their voice as an investor and building that track record for them.
Yeah, and I'll echo the same for Vamos, being able to close out the fund, $25 million fund this year. And again, being able to invest in diverse founders with the focus on Latinx. And, it all starts, again, with relationships, right? So being able to meet and recognize the founders, build those relationships, being able to provide feedback on their ventures, being able to make any warm introductions that their business may need, and then ensuring that we always have an open door policy so that founders can come back. What I'm really excited about in 2021 is also, as we talk about building the ecosystem, is starting a scout program so that, this ecosystem of new, Latinx and diverse investors can learn about, deal flow, deal vetting, the investment process, reviewing the deals, the diligence process, and then also how to support those founders. And then, from there again, helping them to establish a track record, and with the opportunity to maybe even become part of the team over at Vamos Ventures. And so how do we, give back by leading and ensuring that, we are here for the long term and that we create more funds that are supporting diverse founders across the board.
Fantastic.
That's amazing.
Fantastic. Yeah. And guys, how can you share with us your contact information with the public so they can reach out to you with additional questions, or just reach out to do business? Or I don't know, Eduardo, if we are going to share that during the post.
We will share if you're watching this, you will find the links in the posts everywhere, like on YouTube, Los Digitales channel. You will find it in any post you will see. You will probably find the link. So to the companies and to these amazing Latinos in the United States that are empowering our community. And I'm very close actually to maybe take the jump. So I've been talking with Adrian before about it, and
we'll have
very
you.
close that probably I will join the fund actually with Adrian.
We'd love to have you. And remember, if you come in, you get un perro.
Yeah.
So the
guys.
reason
the community.
Let me jump in with this. It's a good story. The reason I have this on my desk is the Latinx Good Dog Labs company we sold of the 2 Latino founders. The choir wanted to change the name. And so my partner made these dogs that said Good Dog Labs. And it sits on, and so after the founders left Good Dog Labs, and they, and after, it got acquired a second time, we always keep these on our desk. We give these to our entrepreneurs. We give these to our limited partners as a reminder that the importance of diversity, how a Latino-led, venture fund invested in a Latino-led, startup that was our fastest and best acquisition. And for us, it reminds us to do better. For us, that dog reminds us that we can make a difference and that you guys can make a difference too.
Yeah, I'm a big believer of having, things like that as a reminder on your office or whatever your working area is. That's why I have all those guys in the back, because it reminds me how good I feel when I was a kid. So when I'm working and grinding on my office, on my company, I love to see those colors, those shapes, the design of the toys and the characters from the movies that I love, and make me feel like it's a reminder for me that I'm still a kid inside of this big guy suit, right? So that's the reason why I have it here, because it just popped me up, like really, make me happy, make me smile every day.
Jose, that's a great thing. The amount of dogs that I see in cribs that show up that we get pictures of, it's the next generation of entrepreneurs.
That is true. That is true. By the way, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Republic. So, we've talked about, VC and the ecosystem and accredited investors, but there's a whole ecosystem of non-accredited investors. And when you think about, our Latino community, how do you gain some experience if you're not accredited? And so you have Republic, which is a crowd investing platform, which you're able to raise money via the community. And currently you can raise up to $1 million. So think about, friends and family, that seed round. But then next year it'll be up to 5 million. So go to Republic, look at deals, look at companies, learn how to, evaluate a company and look at their, pitch decks, financials, etc. So it's a great way to dabble, I would say, in investing in companies, and also just, getting your foot into the ecosystem so that you can learn more about what it means to be an investor. And so please take a look.
Fantastic. Eduardo, I think we have We had just have a great first episode of Los Digitales Live. I have a big smile on my face. I see everybody here smiling. So that's a good thing. That's why we are here, and we are going to keep bringing people of value that, I mean, to educate our community, right? Our Latino community all over the world. And I want to thank Jesse and Adrian for giving us the time to spend the time here on our platform to talk about these very critical topics and very helpful topics for new venture capitals and for startups looking for some help of great guys, and that they bring this very unique formula of being founders previously and now being investors. I think that's beautiful. Eduardo, do you want to add something here?
Yeah, it was amazing, and I just want to say that, like, there's a lot of way to look at like the glass roof, and like we're like minority groups, right? And the thing is, like, it's the same. Like if you live in US and you're Latino, or you live in Sweden or Norway, it's the same. Like the glass roof is there. And for me, complaining has never helped me anything. Like I go to action. Like we need to change, right? And the only way we can make big change, like Eduardo, I can do a lot of change around me, like with my life, what I want to do. But if we really want to do big change, we need to unite and we need to support. Like we need to create flag like carriers, right? And we see now we have two like that are close to our community, right? Like Jesse Martinez and Adrian Mendoza. And I asked the community to support, like go to their website, see what they're doing, and see what you can do. Like, can you maybe invest in their funds? Do you have a startup? Like contact them. Like it's our people, like you will be treated like we treat each other, right? And to say that, we're going to drink some tequila now. Maybe I couldn't say that. And if you go to vatoscapital.com now, you will come to an article that shows you a list of I did that during the talk, actually. I love that. Vatos Capital. So vatoscapital.com. I'm pitching you now. Like we have a list of minorities like that raised capital. I didn't write this article. I just pointed the domain there. But anyway, do things like help each other. It's not so hard, And I learned this from like the best advice I got. I had really big mentors, like big entrepreneurs that have mentored me. And the best advice I got was somebody told me like, Eduardo, you want to know a secret? And I was like, what? He said, if you ask somebody, a skilled person that you admire, if you ask them, even if they're your competitor, they will tell you. And I said, like, how come like that? Because I'm born like this thing with Latins, like in the beginning, it's like a little suspicious against each other, right? Until they get to know each other, and then like they trust each other, right? and in Norway and Scandinavia, everybody trusts each other until they fool you, and then they're like, oh no, I don't trust you anymore. In Chile, it's the opposite. Like he will fool me. I just wait and see. It's like they have that. So he said to me, like, if you ask your competitor anything, they will tell you. And I said, like, why? He said, skilled people love to talk about what they're doing. And I tried that and it works. So what I want to say with that, ask for help. Like go to Adrian, like how did he do it? Like how does it work? Like collaborate with each other, talk with each other. And that is unity. Communication leads to unity, and unity, it leads to change, actually. So es tiempo, as Frank Carvajal says, or grand father figure mentor, es tiempo. Now let's bring the tequila.
All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Es tiempo para la
Absolutely.
tequila.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for this great opportunity to have you here talking about BC venture capital and giving us some education. We really appreciate that. And I invite you to follow our channel and our podcast, because we are going to bring more heavy guys like you on different perspectives on or different arenas of the business world. So that's our main focus here. and I'm very honored to have you here and to be friends with all of you guys. Thank you so much.
Anybody can host in Los Digitales Live, actually. It's for the community. So anybody watching here, if you have an idea and you want to interview somebody in the network, contact me or Jose Ochoa or Juan or anybody in Los Digitales. This is a community thing, actually. If I see my face here more than twice in a year...
Yeah, it's an open source.
That's awesome. Well, mil gracias, guys.
No.
Thanks for everything.
Gracias, muchas gracias. Gracias por su tiempo. Gracias por estar aquí. Y pues estamos en contacto. Gracias por todo.
Sí, si le podemos ayudar, por favor, reach out. Y si quieren más información, vamosventures.com. Y a mí en LinkedIn, Jesse Martinez.
Yeah, reach out to me, Adrian Mendoza VC at LinkedIn or mendoza-ventures.com, and happy to talk to you.
Gracias, amigos.
Perfecto.
Gracias.
Okay. Vamos a buscar un sponsor en el tequila.
Perfecto.
Tequila time. Ciao.
Ciao, guys.
Ciao, guys.
Ciao, gracias.
VatosCapital.com. Bye, bye.